So in this video, we're going to cover some basic strategies that you can use on the math section of the SAT exam. And let's look at this question. It says if 5x plus 8 is 23, then what is the value of 7x minus 4? Now these questions are pretty common, and if you see them, the basic idea is solve for x and plug it into the second expression. So what we're going to do is solve for x in this equation. And what we need to do is subtract both sides by 8. 23 minus 8 is 15. And now to solve for x, we need to get x by itself on one side of the equation. So our next step is to divide both sides by 5. 5x divided by 5 is simply x. 5 over 5 is 1. And then 15 divided by 5 is 3. So x is 3. So now that you have the value of x, you can easily find the value of 7x minus 4. All you need to do is simply plug it into that expression. So let's replace x with 3. 7 times 3 is 21, and 21 minus 4 is 17. So that's the value of 7x minus 4 given this equation. So E is the right answer. Now let's try a similar problem. So if 60 over y plus 8 is equal to 15 over y minus 1, then what is the value of 5y divided by 4? So based on the last example, go ahead and try this problem. Now, this one is going to be a little bit harder, but the principles behind it is still the same. That is, in the equation, we need to solve for y. We need to find the value of y. And once we have the value of y, we can plug it in to find the value of the expression 5y over 4. So go ahead and take a minute and try this practice problem. So let's rewrite the equation. 60 over y plus 8 is equal to 15 over y minus 1. So if we have an equation that looks like this, what do we need to do in order to solve, in order to find the value of y? Whenever you have two fractions separated by an equal sign, what you can do is you can cross multiply. And so we have 15 times y plus 8, and that's equal to 60 times y minus 1. Now what do you think we need to do next? Our next step is to distribute. So we got to multiply 15 by y, which is 15y, and then 15 times 8. So we can use a calculator. 15 times 8 is 120. By the way, if you want to do that in your head, multiply 10 by 8, which is 80, and then 5 times 8, that's 40. 80 plus 40 is 120. Now let's do the same thing for the right side. So we have 60 times y, and then 60 times negative 1, which is negative 60. So now let's combine like terms. So what I'm going to do is subtract both sides by 15y, and simultaneously I'm going to add 60 to both sides. So the y variables will cancel on the left side, and negative 60 plus 60 will cancel on the right side. So I have 120 plus 60, which is 180, and 60y minus 15y, that's 45y. So what's the last thing I need to do here once I have this expression? I need to get y by itself. So I need to divide both sides by 45. 180 divided by 45 is 4. So y is equal to 4. So now that we have the value of y, we can now plug it in to this expression to find the value of 5y over 4. So let's replace y with 4. 5 times 4 over 4. All we need to do is cancel the 4, and so this is equal to 5. Which means that answer choice E is the right answer. So whenever you see these types of problems, where they give you an equation and then ask you for the value of an expression, solve for the variable and then plug it in to this expression, and that's it. Number 3, which of the following values of x is a solution to the equation shown below? Now, there's two ways in which we can solve this particular problem. There's the long way and there's the short way. Now, because this is a multiple choice problem, the short way will work. But if this was a free response problem, we have no choice but to do it the long way. And so it might be best to do it both ways just in case. But let's go over the short way, and that is plugging in the answers and seeing which one works. So let's start with answer choice A. If x is equal to 4, will the left side of the equation be equal to the right side of the equation? Let's find out. So we're going to have 4 plus 5 squared is equal to 4 minus 1 squared. Now 4 plus 5 is 9, and 4 minus 1 is 3. Clearly, 9 does not equal 3, so therefore 9 squared cannot be equal to 3 squared. And so we could eliminate answer choice A. Now let's move on to the next one. So let's plug in negative 1. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4, and negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. 4 squared is 16, negative 2 squared is 4. These two don't equal each other, so we could eliminate answer choice B. Now let's move on to answer choice C. So let's replace x with 3. And let's see if it's going to work this time. 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 minus 1 is 2. Clearly, 8 squared, which is 64, does not equal 2 squared, which is 4. So C can be eliminated. Now let's move on to answer choice D. Negative 2 plus 5 squared is equal to negative 2 minus 1 squared. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3, and negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Okay, so this looks good. 3 squared, that's 3 times 3, that's 9. Negative 3 squared, which is negative 3 times negative 3, that's still positive 9. So both sides of the equation work, which means that D is the right answer choice. So we don't need to check E, but if you want to, you could do a mental check. 1 plus 5 is 6. 1 minus 1 is 0. 6 squared doesn't equal 0 squared, so E can be eliminated as well. So that's how you can quickly get the answer, simply by plugging in the answer choices and see which one works. Now, in case this is a free response question, let's try doing it the long way. By the way, if you want more SAT problems to work on with the solutions as well, just like what you see in here, but like with harder problems, check out the description section of this video. I'm going to post a link to my Patreon page where you can access my 8-hour-long SAT math video, which can help you with algebra, geometry, and other word problems in the SAT math tests. So feel free to check out that link when you get a chance. Now let's get back to this problem. X plus 5 squared, you need to understand that it's the same as x plus 5 times x plus 5. It means we have two of these expressions multiplied to each other. So x minus 1 squared is equivalent to x minus 1 times x minus 1. Now what we need to do at this point is we need to FOIL. So x times x is x squared, and then x times 5, that's 5x. 5 times x is also 5x, and then we have 5 times 5, which is 25. So let's do the same thing on the right side. X times x, that's x squared again, and then we have x times negative 1, and then negative 1 times x, that's negative x, or negative 1x, and negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Now let's combine like terms. So we can combine these two and those two. 5x plus 5x is 10x. Negative 1x minus 1x is negative 2x. Now, let's combine terms on both sides of the equation. So what I'm going to do is subtract both sides by x squared, because they can be canceled. And then I'm going to add 2x to both sides. And at the same time, I'm going to subtract both sides by 25. So I'm doing this in such a way that I can move all of the x variables on one side of the equation and all of the constants on the other side of the equation. Notice that we can cancel the x squareds. 10x plus 2x is 12x. We could also cancel 25 and negative 25, and negative 2x with 2x. Now we can add these two. 1 plus negative 25, or 1 minus 25, that's negative 24. And so right now we have 12x is equal to negative 24. So the last thing we need to do is divide both sides by 12. And so negative 24 divided by 12 is negative 2. So the long method wasn't really that long in this particular case, but sometimes it could be longer. But this is the answer. So you have two ways in which you can solve it. So let's work on this free response problem. If the diagonal length of a square is 14, then what is the area of the square? When dealing with geometry problems, if they don't give you a picture, I recommend drawing a picture and writing things down. You don't want to hold everything up in your head because it can be easy to make a mistake, unless you're very, very careful, but it's good to write things down so you can avoid making mistakes. And so let's go ahead and draw a picture. And so here is the square, and then we need to draw the diagonal of the square. So we're told that this is equal to 14. Now how can we determine the area of the square? The area of the square is basically x times x. It's the side length squared. So let's call this x and x. How can we find the value of x? So notice that we have a right triangle. When you split the square into two parts, it makes up a triangle. And the side lengths of a square are always the same. So we know that these two have to be the same. So that's why we can call them x and x. So how can we find the value of x? There's different ways of doing this, but one technique that you can use is the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. C is the hypotenuse of the right triangle, which is the longest side, the side across the box. A and b in this case is equal to x. So we have x squared plus x squared is equal to 14 squared. So 1x squared plus 1x squared is 2x squared. Now 14 times 14, that's 196. So I'm going to rewrite the equation up here. So now we can get rid of this. Now let's divide both sides by 2. 196 divided by 2 is 98. So x squared is equal to 98. Therefore, what is the value of x? At this point, we could take the square root of both sides. So what is the square root of 98? 98 is basically 2 times 49. So we can write the square root of 98 as the square root of 2 times the square root of 49. Now the square root of 49 is 7. And so this simply becomes 7 times the square root of 2. And that's the value of x. Now our goal is to determine the area of a square. It's basically the length times the width, or x times x, which is x squared. Now we saw that x squared was 98, so that's going to be the area. Because if you multiply 7 times the square root of 2 times itself, or if you square it, 7 squared is 49. The square root of 2 squared is just 2, and so that gives you 98 again. And so that is the area of the square. So this is the answer. Now let's work on number 5. In right triangle ABC, angle CAB is 45 degrees. If BC is 10, then what is the area of the triangle? So just like before, what we need to do is draw a picture. Now we can draw the picture in any way we so choose. We can draw it like this, or we can draw it like that. It really doesn't matter. But what's important is that angle B is the right angle. Because we have a right triangle and the middle letter has to be the right angle. So we could say this is A, B, and C. So it really doesn't matter. You just gotta pick one of these pictures. So I'm gonna go with this picture. So let's say this is A, B, and C. Now angle CAB, so here's C, here's A, here's B. So this is angle CAB. That angle is 45 degrees. Now what is the missing angle of the triangle? You need to know that the three angles of a triangle add up to 180. So 180 minus 45 minus 90 is 45. So we have a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle. Now we're told that BC is 10. What is the area of the triangle? What we have also is an isosceles triangle, because if these two angles are the same, then these two sides are the same. So we have an isosceles right triangle, which means that AB is also 10. To find the area of the right triangle, we need to use this formula. It's 1/2 base times height. So the base is 10 and the height is also 10. So the area is going to be 1/2 10 times 10. Now 10 times 10 is 100. And 1/2 of 100, or 100 divided by 2, is 50. So the area of this right triangle is 50 square units. And so this is the answer. So for geometry problems, if you're not given a picture, make sure to draw a figure and then solve it accordingly. So for those of you who want more SAT math problems, feel free to check out my Patreon page. It's at patreon.com/mathsciencetutor. So if you go down, you'll see a lot of other videos that you can have access to. If you're studying for physics, here's a final exam review that can help you. Or if you're taking the ACT, here's a math video that will help you as well. And so this is the SAT math video I was talking about. It's an 8-hour-long video. It has plenty of problems, over 150 multiple choice problems. And it teaches functions, geometry, algebra, averages, word problems, and things like that. So you have to check it out to see it. And there's some other videos here too. So you can scroll through those if you need help, let's say in general chemistry and things like that. Now let's move on to our last problem. What is the area of the right triangle shown below? Just like the previous problem, we can use the same formula. The area is 1/2 base times height. So make sure you know your geometry formulas. This is the base, this is the height. We don't have the value for either of those. So what should we do in this problem? In this problem, it helps if you know your 30, 60, 90 triangle, which we do. Or hopefully you do. But after this video, you should know it. So across the 30-degree angle, this is going to be 1. Across the 60-degree angle, it's the square root of 3. And across the 90-degree angle, it's 2. And so what you can do is you can solve for B and H by using similar triangles. 20 corresponds to 2, and B corresponds to the square root of 3. So let's set up a proportion. Let's call this triangle 1 and this triangle 2. So on the left side, I'm going to put the information for triangle 1, and on the right side for triangle 2. So the hypotenuse of triangle 1 corresponds to the hypotenuse of triangle 2. And then this leg, basically side BA, which is B, that corresponds to the square root of 3. And so we need to solve for B. Let's cross multiply. So we have 2B is equal to 20 times the square root of 3. So what we need to do now is just divide by 2. So 20 divided by 2 is 10. So we could say that B, which I'm going to write it over here, is equal to 10 square root 3. Now let's follow the same process to calculate the other missing variable, in this case h. So h corresponds to 1. So I'm going to write the hypotenuse of triangle 1, which is 20, and that corresponds to the hypotenuse of triangle 2, which is 2. Now, the other leg of triangle 1, which is h, that corresponds to the other leg of triangle 2, which is 1. So let's cross multiply. So 20 times 1 is 20, and that's equal to 2 times h, which is 2h. So all we need to do is divide by 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 2h divided by 2 is h. So h is equal to 10. So now we have the length of the base and the length of the height. So using this formula, area is 1/2 base times height. The base is 10 square root 3, and the height is 10. So let's multiply 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So we have 1/2 times 100 times the square root of 3. And then half of 100 is 50. So the answer is 50 square root 3 inches squared, because the hypotenuse was 20 inches. Now we need to get the decimal value for this answer. So in your calculator, type in 50 multiplied by the square root of 3. And so the answer as a decimal is going to be 86.6025 square inches. And so that's the answer as a decimal. I guess you can round that as 86.60 if you want to. And so that's it for this video. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.